you found yourself caught in the anxiety trap? Stay tuned to learn how to get out on this episode of Inspire Iredell.
Welcome to Inspire Iredell. I'm Meagan.
I'm Anna.
We are so happy to be here with you today and to have Derick Buggs with us. Welcome, Derick.
Okay, so glad to be here.
So, Derick, you hold a Master of Social Work and as a social worker are a social worker. It's early in the morning. My grammar's not great. At Iredell Davis Behavioral Health Hospital, you provide crisis intervention and individual, group, and family therapy, and empower clients by holistically managing their symptoms and building coping skills. And side note, you love enjoying nature and bird watching.
Absolutely.
That's fun.
Absolutely.
How do you get into bird watching?
You know, it's one of those things that I just found that when I'm having a busy day at work, just to relax, I come home, sit on my back porch, and just happen to watch birds. And then eventually I started buying bird feeders. And then eventually I started researching birds. And so next thing you know, I'm like, I'm a bird watcher.
Yeah. Okay. Does your wife watch birds with you?
No.
Does she think, is she like, Bugs, come on?
No, she laughs at me because sometimes I go out there and I talk to the birds and she's like, oh, okay, you taking it a little bit too far.
Okay. Yeah. I do follow this person on he posts reels all the time, and he has become friends with the squirrels in his backyard, and he makes commentary for them.
Oh, that's fun.
It's real cool. He has like a fake microphone, and it's a bird, or it's like a squirrel feeder. And so they get up there, and it looks like they're talking in the microphone, and so he makes commentary. So,
That's actually pretty neat.
That's $1 million idea for you.
That's right.
If you want to do it with your birds.
I'm going to have to do that.
Oh my gosh. So, Bugs, we are really excited to have you here to talk about the anxiety trap.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what is an anxiety trap?
So anxiety trap is cycle of avoidance. Many times in our lives, we have things that we avoid. And so what end up happening with that is that we tend to avoid different things. And so what end up happening is a cycle. So it's a big cycle. So it's an avoidance. We avoid it. Then we get relief from it because we avoided it.
Yeah.
Then we start thinking about it again. It started intensifying. And then once it started intensifying, that's when the anxiety come back. And so basically it's just a cycle. So what end up happening many times is that we avoid conversations, but we still wonder, why am I still feeling like this? It's because you never dealt with the situation.
Oh. We're like, We both had that thought. I could tell.
Okay, yeah. It feels like you literally got inside of my head and were like, what's going on in there? Let me write it down for this podcast.
Yes.
Okay, so why do we like to, sidestep some of these emotions and avoid them whenever we know it's just going to come back?
I think a lot of times it's because we don't want to deal with the situation. We don't want to deal with the disagreement. We don't want to deal with the situation. So we avoid it because at that time in that place, we don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so what end up happening is that when we sideswipe it, or we don't deal with it, right? We avoid it. What end up happening is we get that relief. So then we go on our day with like, oh, it's so good, blah, blah, blah. And then what end up happening is when I say we sideswipe it, eventually we got to come back to that situation again. And so that's when it starts ramping up. That's when we see that person again, be like, oh, I still got to have that conversation. I still got to deal with that. And so then all that anxiety come back up, right? And so then what end up happening is when you finally decide to deal with the situation, because you're like, I can't avoid it, I have to deal with it. When we don't prepare, then it comes across as being mean, angry, things like that. We say things that we don't mean, is because that anxiety has us up to a level up here, and we're trying to maintain our level here.
Yeah.
And so when we don't deal with it, we avoid it. And as we avoid it and avoid it and avoid it and avoid it, it comes up and up and up. And so then we deal with it incorrectly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, totally been there.
So can you give us an example of somebody in this cycle? I mean, you were just talking kind of about like having a conversation with somebody.
So a prime example, if you need to have a difficult conversation, right? Let's do work, right? We need to have a difficult conversation. We got to talk to our boss about something, a project she gave us, and we know that the timeline that she gave us is not going to work, right?
Okay.
And so we try to deal with that. timeline. And so what end up happening is that when we see our voice, we don't avoid it. When our boss say, how things going? We say, oh, it's going good. I'm working on it. It's doing all right, right? So we get that temporary relief. But then when she walks away, we then start thinking about it like, okay, this is due next week. Oh my God, I know it's not going to get done next week, right? And so we have that anxiety. So what end up with the anxiety is we then be angry. I'm working all these hours. I got to figure this out. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this, right? And so what end up happening is now the anxiety comes up and now we're not dealing with it. So when your boss come back and say to you like, hey, next week, remember we need to meet for that. Then we say, it's not going to work out. I'm not going to get this thing done, blah, blah, blah. Why would you give me something like this? And then your boss looking like whoa, what's going on? What's going on, right?
Yeah.
It's because you avoided the conversation. When she gave it to you or he gave it to you on the first time, you should have said, I appreciate you giving me that, but this I might not be able to get done at that time. Can we sit down and can we talk about something else?
Okay.
Or what are you going to take off my plate so we can ensure that this get done if it's that important to you?
Okay.
Is that a good example?
Yeah,
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, very good.
And I think sometimes people also have different personalities. So maybe people that are more passive might be more anxious people because, you know, you push them to a point, right? But then some people will take it head on and be like, that's 100% not getting done this week.
Absolutely.
Right.
No. But those people, right, the passive people, just think about it, they do everything as this, right? The one that's not as so passive, we find those things in our life that we haven't dealt with as childhood, right? And so now we carrying these things into our marriage, we're carrying these things into our relationships, we're carrying these things into because we're so head on things, but we haven't dealt with past things.
Yeah.
So now we're head on, we're doing this, but our head on-ness is maybe a way of us avoiding as well.
Okay.
So there's probably triggers for those things,
it's
right?
triggers,
So
correct.
you've buried something, you've repressed it so much, and then at some point something triggers you and it comes back up, and suddenly you have to deal with something from 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
Type of thing.
And then that person or that loved one's looking at you saying, what's wrong? Like, this is what you always do. But you have masked it so long, right? You put on your mask, you have covered it up so long, you covered it head on, and now you can say, I can't fake it no more.
Right.
I got to deal with it.
Man.
Yeah, I see that happening a lot in, relationships where, people will complain. Like, I feel like we're just, roommates and going through the motions and you don't even talk to them anymore. And maybe sometimes it's because they have, things in their relationship that they haven't talked about.
Absolutely. Because they avoid it.
Yeah.
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 And then it ends up affecting not only their relationship, but, their kids because they're seeing that example of a relationship or, it's affecting, their work ethic and all of that. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I've definitely seen that before. So what are other, personally, maybe inside of we'll start with yourself. So what are some signs that maybe you're kind of stuck in this cycle?
I think the sign that's showing that you're stuck in the cycle is when you have anxiety and you don't know what the anxiety is from. Right.
Oh.
And so basically you always say, man, why do I feel like this? What's going on? You have to look internally to yourself and figure out, okay, what is it that is a trigger for me? What is it that's giving me these feelings? What is it that I'm not dealing with? Right. Those are the hard questions you got to deal with. A lot of times we don't deal with hard questions. So we just keep moving on. We just keep going on with our day. We just keep faking it till we make it. Right. But then one of those things is we have to self-check ourselves. Right. And we have to look at ourselves and say, okay, why am I tripping? What is going on here? What do I need to deal with? And then that's when you can start realizing what it is.
So can we define anxiety?
Yeah.
Because there may be some people listening or watching who maybe have anxiety and don't realize that that's what they're feeling.
Yeah. Anxiety can be a situation that triggers an anxious response, right? So your hands might be sweaty. It might include your thoughts. It could be some physical symptoms. It can be feelings. So anxiety is just things that you just get that feeling about, right? And so what it is,
like worry.
Yeah, it's like a worry, ongoing worrying is a sign of anxiety. Anxiety could be, it's a whole bunch of things. Sometimes you ever feel like they say anxiety attacks, right? Where you feel like I don't know what's wrong with me, but I just feel like I'm becoming overwhelmed, right? It's just too much is going on with me. I just don't know what to do. That could be a form of anxiety. And so a lot of times we have anxiety, but we just think it's normal part of life. Like, I'm just having a bad day. Well, it could be your anxiety that you're having today.
And some anxiety is probably a good thing. Mm-hmm. Like anxiousness maybe before, running a race if you're an athlete. Mm-hmm. Like, having like the anxiousness of like getting the race done.
Started, yeah.
Or maybe, being a little more cautious when you're walking alone at night or something like that. Mm-hmm. But whenever it's like worrying about nothing, is that right?
Yeah. So whenever we just worry about any situation, or we just have an ongoing worry that we know what is linked to, but we just not dealing with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, and sometimes there are maybe more like clinical levels of anxiety, things that it's not like, I think like I get anxious at times, right? But I usually can work through it. I probably have this cycle of avoidance that I need to think about a little bit more, but I feel like I can work through it. But I think there are also, right, there are people and there are times, and it's okay to admit that, right?
Right.
That sometimes you need a little bit of additional help, and
Absolutely.
sometimes there are medications or therapies or whatever it might be that are necessary to help you be able to probably actually work through it, right? To calm your emotions to such a point where you can focus on what you need to focus on.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think even what you just said is key too, is that we know we have anxiety and we know that we need medicine or we need to go see a doctor or we need to do that. But guess what? We avoid that situation.
Yeah.
Right? We avoid that situation because I don't want to be on medicine. I don't want to be considered that I have this or I have that. And so we avoid those situations. We avoid taking our medicine. Mm-hmm. We avoid that, especially dealing in the mental health hospital. A lot of times our patients come back and the first thing I say to them is, how you been doing with your medicine? I was feeling better, so I stopped taking it. Right? And so so then we have to understand it's like, no, that is medicine you have to take to deal with your anxiety, to help you with those things, to help you be able to slow your mind down so you can process, so you can think, so you can realize what is your anxiety linked to, what is it tied to. So it's good to have some anxiety, but we can't use that as a scapegoat to be able to understand, like, if it's ongoing and you need some work to do, then maybe go to the doctor, maybe do what you need to do, because what end up happening is your colleagues, your significant other, or whoever is now carrying your burn on it. And have you ever had somebody say, "Why are you taking out all your anger on me?"
Yes.
It's not really about that. It's because you got some anxiety that you're dealing with that you haven't dealt with.
So at what point does somebody need to probably see somebody?
I think it comes to a point that when you start realizing that is impacting relationships and impacting your job, is impacting the way you speak to your children, when it impact those type of things, then you need to do a self-evaluation and say, okay, I need to go talk to somebody.
Okay.
I need to see what it's all about, what's going on.
And that's okay. It is
That's
okay
right.
to do it.
Absolutely.
Our mental health is important.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah, if your body doesn't make serotonin, store-bought is just fine.
There you go.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah, just to be vulnerable for a moment. So I have generalized anxiety disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder. So it's not super fun sometimes.
Yeah.
And I realized that as a child, some of the things that I would do, it impacted relationships as a child. But at that point, you wouldn't expect, a 4 or 5-year-old to have something like that. So, I dealt with it. And then it came to a point in my late teens that I realized, I'm not being a great friend. I'm not a great student. I'm not being awesome at work. And it was because it felt like inside I wasn't good enough, and I wasn't. You had all these thoughts inside that are saying like, you're not good enough. You don't you're a bad student. You're never going to get that promotion at work. You're never going to do X, Y, and Z. So I started to kind of understand it, and it really wasn't until my mid-20s that I started going to therapy, and I'm on an SSRI, so I have my store-bought serotonin, and that's totally fine. And I like to be vulnerable and say that because it's fine. It's totally fine. And now, do I have bad days? Absolutely. But because of therapy and because of the medication that I'm on, I have tools that can help me get through it.
Yeah. That's the key. That's the key, is the tools, to understand how important those tools are. And thanks for sharing. That is such a wonderful thing to share. And, the thing about it is the reason I got into counseling, just because you shared, I think is important to share, especially from a man's point of view, is that we as men feel like we just can carry the world on our shoulders. We can do this. But I started realizing that I was affecting my home life because I didn't deal with some things that I had in my life, right? And so I had to go and start dealing with difficult conversations conversations from childhood, had to start dealing with some difficult conversations to understand, like, okay, I've been carrying this burden for, 30 years now. Now it's time for me to unpack this, right? I like to use the analogy all the time of I'm walking around with a backpack full of bricks, right? And what ends up happening is every time you avoid something or you don't deal with something, that's another brick going into your backpack. And what ends up happening, it wears you down. And when it wears you down, you fall down. And then instead of asking for help, you just mad and angry and everything because it's heavy. Right. And so now it's like, let me take the stuff out of my backpack. And by doing that, now I can walk around with joy. I can walk around and smile. I can walk around and do that. And I don't have to mask it. Right. Sometimes I used to mask it, come into work and everybody be like, man, Bugs, you got it going on. You so good. But they don't know when I left there, I was like, oh, now I can be myself. Right. Now I'm myself all the time because I have learned how important it is to stop avoiding conversations, stop avoiding situations. Right. Stop looking for that temporary relief. Right. And start understanding that if I just deal with it straight on all the time, I can now don't have to worry about that anxiety. I can deal with the situations and I can move on and I'm not biting people's heads off.
Yeah, I like how you use the word relief because I was thinking that as you were talking because I'm visualizing that. And I think I've seen like memes and things like with that before, but I'm thinking that could become an awfully heavy, large backpack. It kind of makes me think of like a toddler when the backpack is like 5 times too big for them, you know? But I think that's how we can get, right? And I think about, man, I mean, I've carried like every time I've moved, right? And I've helped my husband like move heavy furniture and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can barely hold this up. And the relief I feel when I get to put it down and let go of it, I'm like, whew, and sometimes I feel like I'm recovering for multiple days, you know? And so to think that people are carrying around that sort of burden all the time. And like you were saying, just because somebody's at work or in whatever situation and they're hiding it doesn't mean that burden's not there. It's still heavy. If anything, maybe you're adding an additional brick because you're hiding it. And that cycle of avoidance is getting bigger.
Yeah. Like I've shared, so whenever I was going through the thick of it, a few years ago, and you don't want to tell people because you're embarrassed about what's going on inside your head. And I've come to terms that because there's so many people dealing with it and not talking about it. I feel like one of the gifts I've been given, even if I have to deal with this anxiety, is to talk about it and let people know that it's not unusual. There are people probably in the same, you're at the grocery store, there's probably someone on the next aisle that's going through the same exact thing that you are. And I got really good at hiding it. So for example, I was talking with a friend and, social media can be awesome and also the devil at the same time, right? It's like, I'm not going to post online about like, just had a great cry. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to post that online. I'm going to post, beautiful pictures of my kids and my vacations and, all the fun things. And I had a friend, I had shared with her, what I had been going through. And she said, I always thought you really had it all together. Like, you post all these great pictures. It seems like you're doing all these things. But a lot of times, maybe your friend is doing all of those things and being so busy because it's part of the avoidance.
Absolutely. You just hit it, right? That's the key thing about it is that, believe it or not, many of us have masks. We never let ourselves be genuine, but we understand that when you start dealing with life things and stop avoiding them, you'll take off that mask and you can be your true self. That's what it's all about, being your true self.
Yeah, it's exhausting to wear a costume all day.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Putting it on, faking, talking, doing that, and then getting in your car and driving home crying, or getting in your car, got to go home and deal with that situation you got at home, right? And so just have to understand you got to quit avoiding those things, because what we talked about, right, is the anxiety trap. We are caught in an anxiety trap until we take ourselves out of that trap.
Makes me think it's important to surround yourself with people who are supportive as well. Like sometimes that could be a little bit more difficult in the workplace, right? You don't always choose your coworkers or that sort of thing. But Anna has a great coworker. I just know.
Right. But
we talk about everything, and she notices when something might be a little bit off with me, and I feel like vice versa. So that's super helpful. Sometimes vulnerability can be a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think your family too, right? Like being able, whether you're married, single, whoever it is, like it's probably important to have somebody that can be your support system, even if they don't live with you, right? Like have a friend or a colleague or whoever it might be that can help you, like you said, like notice those things and maybe sometimes kind of hold your hand figuratively and walk you through it. And even if you don't understand it, because Anna and I do have conversations, and I am blessed that I am not an anxious person in general. Sometimes I have it, but it's more so
the kind that's normal.
Yeah, it's just kind of, And so, but it's also helpful to me because Anna and I will have conversations and she'll explain how she's feeling. And then it kind of enlightens me, of, okay, like this is what she's going through type of thing. And, and then and we have such different perspectives sometimes too. Absolutely. And I know other people who will explain things and they'll say, I'm thinking this person's thinking this or whatever it is. And I'm like, my mind does not even go in that direction whatsoever. Absolutely. So again, support system, right? Just so important.
And it's so important to understand that you just said something, right? That is so important to understand is that your perspective, right? We have to understand that if we're dealing with the anxiety or we're dealing with it, we have to be able to explain it in a way that someone will understand, right? And so sometimes we can't come at this, we got all these names and all these degrees and we want to talk. Sometimes I got to go down to the third grade level and say, this is how I'm dealing. This is how I feel. Like the same way a third grader feel or a first grader or a kindergarten feel on the first day of school, you understand that, right? That's how I'm feeling every day when I come into work.
Yeah.
And so then people are like, oh, okay, that makes sense, right? And so sometimes we have to understand that we have to just get on that surface level. And then another thing that you said is like family, right? I'm so big on you create who your family is going to be, right? So you have friends, you have family, but sometimes family don't understand.
That's right.
Or sometimes family got blinders on because they haven't dealt with it.
Yes.
So they're avoiding those situations.
Yeah. Amen.
Right? And so sometimes I'm big on you create who you want in your family. And so if that's friends, if that's loved ones, if that's church people, if that whoever, those are the ones you create and those are the ones you talk to. You build your own nucleus because sometimes talking to family will make you more mad and more angry and create more anxiety because they have blinders on and they can't see what you're going through because they haven't dealt with the reality yet. Because it's hard to go to a family member because that's one of the avoidance and say, remember when you did this 20 years ago, I still deal with that pain. And they was like, I didn't do nothing to you.
Yeah. But they might be dealing with that avoidance themselves.
Well, right.
So it's better not to hold the anger, probably.
Correct. Yeah, it's not to be hold the anger, but sometimes it's like, let me have this conversation. It's going to be a difficult conversation, but when I see you, I don't want to keep feeling this anxiety. Yeah. I just want to get it out the way and let me cleanse myself and let me be healed from it. And then now it's on you to do the work that you need to do.
Yeah, get it out of the way. That's so hard sometimes, though.
Oh my God.
Yes, it is.
Right? That's probably why we do it. Avoiding it sometimes it seems easier. We just don't realize we're making it harder for
it's that relief. So when we avoid something, we get that relief. And when we get that relief, guess what? Whew.
Yeah.
And then we don't deal with it again. But guess what? 2 years now, you see that person again. Now it's all back intensified again. It's all back there. And now the anxiety back there. But just think about it. If I dealt with it, when I see that person, I'll be like, hey, how you doing?
That's right.
Yeah.
So shift out of like whenever you're feeling that way. How can you help somebody that what are some signs that someone might be dealing with this anxiety trap?
I think the biggest thing is, like you said, you build those, you be around people that you know. And when you see them not being their true self, then that's when you start having conversations, right? And that's when you start saying, what's going on, right? Things like that. Now, if you don't have a good relationship or established relationship, they're going to say nothing.
That's true.
Right? Because they don't want to let anything out. So they're going to say, nothing, I'm okay. Nothing going on, right? And so it's so important to understand that we have to build relationships and connection with people that they feel comfortable to tell you like, hey, this is what I'm going through.
100%, yeah.
Right? And so they will stay in that trap until they feel comfortable enough to be with. That's why it's so important what we said at work is building relationships with your colleagues, right? To do that. Iredell Davis, the social worker team, we do very well at that, right? One of the things that we did is we started eating lunch together every day, right? We started laughing, we started talking, we doing that. But through that, when we see someone down, we bring it to the table at lunchtime. We have conversations, and then we all try to help each other do that. But that comes because we're building relationships.
I'm gonna come join you for lunch.
Absolutely, come and hang out with us.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. Very good. So what are some, other than just talking, what are some things that maybe you could do in the moment if you start feeling anxious? I know we had Sarah Neal, one of our corporate wellness nurses, talking about breathing exercises.
Yeah. So it's a lot of tools that you can use, right? And the biggest thing I say about tools is this. If you don't practice when you're not in that situation, the tool will not be able to work.
Okay. 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So
My therapist told me that too.
Right. So you can't tell me to breathe. Hey, go and breathe if I have never breathed before, or I don't know, or I don't use it.
It's like more anxiety not knowing how to do it.
Right. So guess what? You breathe in, you like,
Yep.
And then it's like, it's not working. I'm never going to do breathing again. It's like, no, you used it incorrectly. So a lot of times I always say is you have to be able to take the time to find tools that you will work, and then you have to apply them even when you don't need them. So if you need to practice breathing, you don't wait until you need it. You practice breathing all the time. So then when you have that situation, then you can be like, okay, I need to breathe.
Yeah.
Right. And then you put that in place. Right. Or I need to go meditate. It's hard to tell somebody, go sit in a room and meditate, because that's hard.
Yeah.
Right. I remember when I first started doing meditate, the first time I did meditate, I probably did it for 1 minute. Mm-hmm. Right, because my mind got the moving around, right? But then as you practice and you continue to do it, now I can say, okay, I can sit 20 minutes now, right? But it took me 20 years to get to that 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And so we have to understand it's practice, it's putting the effort towards it. So you find tools that work for you, or you research tools and say, okay, I have anxiety. What are some of the things I can do? Find those tools and then say, hey, I think this is a good one. Let me try this. And then try it by putting it in your regular routine of saying, this is what I'm going to do every day.
Wow.
Good to know.
Yeah, that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what, if you could tell our listeners and our viewers one thing that they could do today if they're dealing with this anxiety trap, what would you tell them?
I think the biggest thing that when you're dealing with the anxiety trap is first sit down and just say, have self-reflection with yourself.
Okay.
And say, why am I having difficulty avoiding these conversations? Is this something that I learned from a childhood because my mom and dad didn't do it? And so they have issues in their life that they haven't avoided. And now that have come on to me, right? And so if I want to change the narrative, right, I want to break that generational curse. I want to make sure that my children are not doing what I'm doing. Then we have to sit down and have that self-check and say, okay, these are conversations that I'm avoiding. How do I have these difficult conversations so I can move on? So I always say this, it sounds crazy, but it's real. Go to a mirror and talk to yourself.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Go to a mirror and say, okay, I'm about to have this conversation with Joe. How would I want to say to Joe? Let me look at my face reflections. Let me make sure that I'm not showing anger. Let me make sure that I'm not looking weak, but I'm being firm.
Yeah, body language says
fair.
a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
And so let me just stand there and let me practice over and over and over again until I get it right. And then say, okay, now that I know what I'm going to say, how I'm going to do it, now let's put the plan in motion. Yeah. When I'm going to do it. And then you got to look at, okay, I'm going to do it on this day, this day, this day. Okay, am I going to do it with people around? Am I going to have it one-on-one? Am I going to do that? You have to go through and you process that whole conversation and then go and put that. When you do one thing, it's going to get easier to do another and do another and do another.
And you might have some anxiety leading up to that, right?
Absolutely.
Because I was thinking, man, I'd be nervous.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Whenever I have to have a tough conversation, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like,
Then you breathe, but you practiced it.
Yes.
Right, you
yes,
practice,
true.
right. But guess what happened is when you do it, even though you're going to have anxiety getting up there, that's normal anxiety, right? But you're going to fulfill it, and guess what? You're going to get that relief, and you're going to, the key thing is this. Haven't you ever done something and say, man, that was better than what I thought?
Yes.
Happens every conversation. When I talk to someone and say, did you have that conversation? Yeah, and it went better than I thought. Because we put in our mind what's going to happen.
Worst case
Yeah.
scenario.
Right?
Yeah.
We put in our mind that this is going to happen and this is going to blow up and this is going to blow up. And then when you go up there, a lot of times people are going to say, you know, I never knew that. Thank you for sharing that information with me, right? Or they might be mad and angry, but it's okay for them to be mad, right? It's okay to let them get mad because you shared your truth.
Mm-hmm.
You shared what you believe. Let them leave and let them process it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come back because a lot of times we want them to leave like, oh, warm and fuzzies and so great and thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you tell somebody, look yourself in the face. If you have a difficult conversation with someone and they had it with you and it hurt.
Yeah.
You're not going to be all warm and fuzzy, be like, oh, thank you for sharing that. You're going to be like, okay. And you're going to need time to process
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
And when
Yeah.
you process it, you're going to be like, you know what? She was right or he was right. I do act like that or I did do that. Right? And then you can come back later and say, hey, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Wow. We are out of time. That went so fast.
Man.
We could
Wonderful
talk forever
time.
and ever.
Ever and ever and ever.
right?
About
Like,
this. I think because I
Yeah.
relate to it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so great. Thank y'all for having me.
thank you
Yeah.
so much for being here.
Yeah.
And there's help out there. Google is your best friend. We also have Iredell Psychiatry.
Absolutely.
So we have some awesome talk therapy and psychiatry resources for you if you need it. So thank you so much, Bugs. We really appreciate you
pleasure, my
coming.
pleasure.
And don't get stuck in the anxiety trap. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The content here is for informational and educational purposes only, not for medical advice. Consult your qualified healthcare professional for specific health concerns and questions.